Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from thousands of successful individuals from around the world. I'm your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm privileged to welcome a very, very multifaceted individual from Sydney, Australia, Mr. Avijit Sarkar. Avijit, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Avijit is a musician, a composer, an illustrator, a cartoonist, writer, poet, puppeteer, philanthropist, mathematician, and a polymath. He was awarded the Australia Day Award in 2020 for his contribution to arts and culture. He's a director of the Nataraj Academy in Sydney, Australia, and has appeared in over 1,800 concerts. He's an author of 2 books. He's a cartoonist and has recently published his collection of cartoons, which is titled The Coronavirus Files. And Avijit has left his footprint in every form of creativity in Australia. My goodness, what an amazing track record you have, Avijit. So tell me a little bit about your own amazing journey from mathematics to the arts.
You see, people have asked me this before, and I always compare this to what is, I think, a phenotype thing and a genotype thing.
Mm-hmm.
You see, so music and the arts is sort of a genotype matter for me. My parents were musicians and so on. Runs in sort of runs in the family. Mathematics was a phenotype thing. It came out of sheer interest in algorithms and abstract mathematics. So that's how it happens. But then the journey, I must say that I moved from mathematics into software design many years ago. And that's how it brought me to Australia. In fact, I came here as a software engineer, software writer. All this time, the creativity side always stood as a background for my journey.
And when did you, as a software engineer, a mathematician, but there must have been something in your background which introduced you to music, writing, poetry, so many other things. Was it as a child or was it developed later?
It was as a child. My mother used to say that I used to draw before I could speak.
Okay.
So I think in terms of what I do, drawing or painting is somehow very, very inherent to me. Music, my parents were musicians. So I grew up, started learning music when I was little. I was maybe 6 years old. So from childhood, yes, so the training came through. In painting, I've never had any training in painting and cartooning. But music, yes, I've learned from my parents and teachers, other teachers.
How amazing. How amazing. And when I was reading about you, Avijit, I was fascinated to see so many diverse interests. Now, I'm sure there's a thread that runs through all of it from your perspective. But for my viewers and listeners, tell me, how do you handle so many diverse interests?
I do it. I think one is that I've, over the years, knowing that I wanted to do a few things, I've trained my mind into sort of what I call watertight compartments. So let's say when I'm composing music, I completely forget about anything else that I write or I do anything. And for that moment, I'm just a musician and nothing more. So over the years, it has really worked for me. That how to isolate your mind into one area and just focus on that when you're doing that. That has helped. And the second thing was time management. You only have, and in my younger days, I realized that you need time to do all this. I was studying, I was doing other stuff. And so I thought there has to be some sacrifice somewhere. And the thing that I sacrificed for many years was sleep. And I used to sleep maybe 4 hours a day for years because I wanted to do so much. I never felt that I was tired because I had so much in my heart to do. Yeah.
Well said. So, when I was reading about you again, I was trying to decide what area should I talk to you about. And then what caught my eye was that, you appeared in over 1,800 concerts and you're a director of the Nataraj Academy in Sydney. So I thought, let's talk about theater today, and we'll talk about your second avatar as an author. Sure. My first question is, tell me a little bit about the kind of work you're doing as a theater artist.
I am essentially writing at the moment. So I'm writing theater, I'm writing plays. Last week was my first production in Sydney.
Okay.
But before that, I had an interest because I was trained in puppetry back in India, in Ahmedabad. The Darpana academy run by Mrinalini Sarabhai at that time. So as a young child, I grew into that academy, learned puppetry from Meher Contractor, who was an internationally known puppeteer. So my interest in theater was always there in the background. Somehow music and other stuff took over. But I started writing plays about 2 years ago. And last week was my first production in Sydney. 5 of my plays in one evening, 5 short plays.
Wow.
With 27 actors, 5 directors, and a cast and crew of over 50 people. So it was a big project, went off very well. This is my first step into the real world of theater, I think.
Amazing. So my next question is that how is technology changing theater? I remember seeing a lot of street art, street theater in India. And now these theaters have become so technologically advanced. How is technology changing theater?
Theater, I think, has been affected. You see, technology can't change acting.
Correct.
Your inherent quality of acting. What it can really add to is your lighting, your sound, your props, all that stuff. And that is amazing what they do nowadays. Some of the big productions I see in Sydney, I mean, it's just mind-blowing stuff. Everything because of technology. So sometimes you don't even see where theater ends and film begins in certain productions. You just incredible. So yes, it has had very positive in terms of the visual impact for the audience. Yes, technology has helped. But then after all that, if you're a bad actor, you're a bad actor. That's what it is.
Absolutely. Well said.
Yeah.
And are we seeing a resurgence of theater in the face of all these digital media platforms that are coming? I mean, I'm seeing that in India now with post the pandemic. More people want to go and see plays and be outside rather than sit in front of their television screen.
Yes. The digital media, I've got very good things to say about it, as well as some not so good things. One thing, the pandemic, yes, that has taken away work from a lot of creatives. Financially, there's no work and they suffer a lot, creatives. And for the audience, it took away the pleasure of seeing something live. So once the pandemic is gone, both sides flooded in. The other thing about digital platform is that I think there's too much of it nowadays. And people, as you said, are thirsting to see live people performing, whether it be theater or music or whatever. So the idea that the thirst has increased because there's an overwhelming presence of digital media at the moment. Yeah.
And, you just told me about last week, you're producing the first set of 5 acts. My question was, how long does it take from the time you conceive of the idea till you actually have audience sitting in front of the stage?
Yes. I guess that it all starts with you writing the plays first. That itself might take months and months of writing 5 plays. Other than that, once the plays are ready, I think, again, you're talking about not days, but months again. Months and months, especially if it's a large production, you're talking about a very, very long time because it goes through the producers, the directors, the scripts get changed, actors have to be retrained. So it's a huge project. It's not like music, if that's a good comparison, that if you ask me to sit down and do a 3 hours concert, I can do it after this interview is over. I can sit down with my keyboards, a piano or whatever and do a theater. That's not the case. It is group work, you see. So it takes a very long time to mature.
But the other thought that I had, and I love watching theater, and I've seen a lot of theater in the UK and in New York. But I've often wondered, why is it that from an English language perspective, London and New York seem to be the only places where there is such large productions, when English is spoken in so many different countries?
Yes.
Why is this happening?
I mean, I have seen very large productions in Australia now, huge productions, Phantom of the Opera and so those big ones. And I think I tend to believe that let's say in the Indian community in Australia, I'm just giving an example, they still are comfortable with their own language. I've seen that audiences tend to enjoy more when the language is colloquial, is they know those phrases and terms. And that's one of the reasons that I think. The other reason, of course, in London, and that's the hometown of theater and films. New York, whatever you do, you can't really beat what they produce in Broadway. Nowhere in the world. That's the heart. I think London has been the heart for centuries, I think, for theater. But these two I think they are the throbbing heart, and you can't beat them, even if you try.
Well said. One more question on theater, and then I'll move to your books. We've just started to come out of the pandemic, and one of the areas that was severely affected was theater and theater artists. I'd love to get your perspective and thoughts on what happened.
I think the sad part was that a lot of them lost their work, especially people who live on theater, that's their livelihood. They really suffered. I've known friends who are on the brink of committing suicide, killing themselves because there's nothing. And it is okay if it's for a short term, but they couldn't see anything in the future either. There's just nothing. On the other hand, the audiences, people who love theater, people who love to go live, they were absolutely famished. They were hunger stricken for live theater. So the pandemic had effect, a huge effect on both sides of the stage. And I'm glad that this new energy has now come in. I see it all over the world. Once the pandemic went away, audiences are ready to roll up their sleeves, ready to go. And the actors too, ready to move on. Very, very happy to see that.
And, I never thought of it from the audience perspective, but you're so right. I mean, of course, the pandemic has impacted not just theater artists and all the other people in theater, but also the audiences,
Yes.
Thank you. That's absolutely a great insight. Let me now move, Avijit, to your books. You've written 2 books. Before you tell me about your books, I'm assuming the books are available on Amazon.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to ask all our viewers and listeners to go and check out Mr. Avijit Sarkar's books. I'm going to check them out myself. Tell me a little bit about your books.
Well, I've been writing for many years. It's only, I think, 5 years ago that I wrote my first book, A Change of Events. They are a collection of 12 of my short stories. And I wrote this book with a purpose that I thought that whatever money I get out of these books, because I do a lot of work for cancer research in Australia. And I decided if I write this book and if it sells, I'll give all the money away to cancer research. That was a driving force for me. And it went well. The book was very well taken, I think. A lot of people bought the copies. And I thought I should write more after that. And then my next book was the collection of my funny, humorous short stories. And I wrote that in collaboration with a very well-known author in India by the name of Dr. Santosh Bhakaya. She's a very, very good writer and poet. And we produced this book called Bring Out the Tall Tales, is the name of the book. And it's done very well in India. It's not even been released in Australia. I haven't had the opportunity. But yeah, it's done very well in India. So I've written, the first book was all serious stuff. The second book was all my humorous, funny stories, short stories.
Interesting. And therefore, my next logical question to you, Avijit, is what makes a good story?
I think I love the short form. Let me tell you first. I read books too, but I love the short version. I think what makes a good story is there are a few things. I always felt that the opening of the story and the closing really makes or breaks a story. I think. The other thing is that because I like the short form, I think a good story is where the characters are built up quickly. Instead of, the traditional old style as you have chapters before you build up a character. I think the time has gone now that you build up characters in stories very quickly so that the audience starts involving with the characters. That's another component of a very good story. And when I write a bit long stories, I always make it a point for every chapter to be a page turner. So you finish a chapter and you can't wait for the next one, whether it be funny or suspense or whatever, tragedy. So these are some ingredients, I think, that make a good book, a good story. Yeah.
Fascinating. You also mentioned that the proceeds of your first book you were giving for cancer research.
Yes.
Is there any background why you decided to support cancer?
Yes, about 10 years ago, my wife was diagnosed with breast cancer.
Mhm.
She was lucky that she escaped from that. And at that time, we sat down and said, look, anything that comes out of my creative pursuits should be and must be given to cancer research, specifically for breast cancer research. And from there on, all my concerts, books I write, whatever sells is all given away.
Oh, wow.
And the first book, my first book was auctioned, the first copy for $16,000.
Mm.
And an entire amount given away to the Cancer Council in Australia. And it's very, very satisfying. Very, very satisfying for me.
Wonderful. You also written a book, or you also published a book, which is a collection of your cartoons. And I was fascinated, serious first book, then, lighthearted second book, now cartoons. Tell me a little bit about the coronavirus files and what took you to this medium.
You see, I have been cartooning since 82 now. Okay, I've been drawing cartoons back in India. I was working as an IT manager for Times of India in Ahmedabad. And I was, in my lunch hour, I used to doodle cartoons. And one of the editors happened to pass by and he said, "Okay, you draw pretty good cartoons. Would you like to get one published?" And I thought, this is amazing. So my first cartoon came out in 1984 in Times of India in a midweek montage. And from there on, I kept on drawing. And then I never published my cartoons. They're on social media. And then comes the pandemic. And people were very serious. They're affected. Things were pretty grim. And I thought that I should take a humorous outlook, the funny side of coronavirus. And I drew a whole series of cartoons, the funny side of a very serious matter, and put it together called the Coronavirus Files.
And these are, I know, when cartoons obviously have different themes, from children to adults, from political topics to a lot of other topics. Do you focus on any one particular theme, or is it anything that strikes you as funny?
I call myself a social cartoonist. So I don't know much of political stuff at all, or for children. But all my cartoons are social. So what I see, what I observe, what I hear, I put it down on paper.
And your book or your publication, the Coronavirus Files, is it also available for purchase anyway?
Yeah, it's on Kindle. So you can download it as a Kindle version.
Very interesting. My next question to you, you were awarded the Australia Day Award in 2020. Tell me a little bit about this award and what goes into getting this award.
Well, you have to be nominated.
Yeah.
So someone nominated me, my name. And it came as a bit of a surprise to me, really, that my name was nominated. Not many colored people are nominated in certain countries, in many, many countries. And I was truly. And the people who were nominated with me had amazing credentials. And I was quite nervous, really, to be honest. But I was happy that I was nominated by someone.
Yeah.
And on that day, it was the biggest surprise of my life to have taken that award. It means a lot. It means that people here now, or in these countries, they have started recognizing people from all backgrounds and giving them their due, or at least telling them, yes, we know what you do. And that's a big thing for me.
Fantastic. I guess this is also a message of inclusion that goes
Absolutely.
out from the country.
Indeed. Indeed.
Wonderful. And my last question to you, Avijit, and this is for the many, many people who will listen to our conversation. Based on your incredible journey, and it's just so motivational to just listen to you doing so many different things, what would you say are 3 lessons from your incredible life that you would want our viewers and listeners to take away?
One is that I think you should never take success for granted. So you have to work hard, persevere, and work very diligently. Do not take success for granted.
Correct.
Success usually does not grow on trees that you can go and pluck it. You have to work very hard. That's one thing. The other thing is that never be swayed, I think, by the applause or by rejection. It can be anything.
Mm.
Whether you're, it doesn't matter. Maybe you're a consultant, maybe, or an artist.
Mm.
Never be swayed by the applause. The
Mm.
applause is usually don't mean much.
Mm.
So, and it can have a detrimental effect on you. It's good that people applaud what you do, but don't get swayed by it. The other side is people might reject you for some time.
Yeah.
So don't get swayed by that either. I've seen people getting swayed by that and becoming sad. I said, don't ever do that. And the third thing, and I think the most important, is never stop learning. So the day comes, if you think you know everything about a topic, then actually you know nothing, really.
Well said.
So never, ever stop learning.
Well said.
Whatever you do.
Amazing. And on that note, Avijit, and your 3 amazing lessons: do not take success for granted. Success does not grow on trees. Second, so powerful, you said, do not get swayed by applause or failure. And the third one, which is, I think, incredible advice to anybody: never stop learning. Thank you so much for speaking to me about your incredible journey. I keep marveling at how many different things that you do, and you do it with so much ease. And I love the way you told me that you just compartmentalize it yourself when you are composing something or you're doing something different. Thank you for talking to me about theater. Thank you for talking to me about your books, about your collection of cartoons, and also about your Australia Day Award. Thank you again, and good luck.
Thank you, Ashutosh, for having me on the platform. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.